What if your car's dashboard could injure you, or your antenna could double as a spear? Back in the days, cars had features that were both innovative and dangerous. Let's dive into 10 of these risky designs that didn't make it to modern times. Starting off at number 10, metal dashboards. Let's rewind to the early days, back when dashboards were made entirely of metal. These shiny, sleek surfaces were all about style, giving cars a futuristic, polished look. But here's the catch: they were as dangerous as they were beautiful. There was no padding, just hard, unforgiving metal. In a crash or sudden stop, passengers would often be flung forward, striking these strong dashboards. The result? Severe injuries, sometimes even life-threatening ones. Fast forward to the 1960s, and the automotive world started waking up to these safety concerns. Car manufacturers began swapping out those dangerous metal dashboards for padded ones. This wasn't just about aesthetics anymore, it became more about saving lives. The padding helped absorb the impact during collisions, significantly reducing the risk of injuries. Plus, new safety regulations were rolling out, forcing manufacturers to design interiors with passenger protection in mind. It made the way for the safer, more thoughtfully designed interiors we enjoy in today's cars. Moving on at number 9, neck seatbelts. Now, this was a bold idea that didn't quite stick. It was a seatbelt designed specifically to restrain your head and neck during a crash. But was this a great idea? Well, the goal was to prevent whiplash by keeping the neck stable. But here's where it gets tricky. While neck seatbelts seemed promising, they came with a serious downside. In a crash, the belt could put too much strain on the neck, sometimes causing injuries instead of preventing them. To make matters worse, these belts didn't secure the torso properly. So while your neck might be restrained, the rest of your body could still be at risk in high-impact situations. Car giants like Ford and General Motors experimented with this concept in the 1960s, but it didn't take long for them to realize its flaws. Ultimately, neck seatbelts were shelved in favor of more modern systems, like the 3-point seatbelts we use today. These modern designs strike the perfect balance, offering head, neck, and torso protection without compromising safety. It's fascinating, isn't it? These milestones in automotive design remind us how far we've come in making cars not just stylish, but safe. Next up at number 8, water balloon bumpers. Now imagine a car bumper designed like a giant water balloon. Sounds fun, right? In the late 60s and early 70s, car manufacturers came up with this creative idea to use water-filled chambers in bumpers to absorb impact energy. The concept was pretty clever. On impact, the water would be forced out through special valves, cushioning the collision and reducing the shock felt inside the car. At first, the idea looked great during tests and demonstrations, but when these bumpers hit the real world, things got messy, literally. In minor crashes, they often ruptured, spilling water everywhere. And in high-speed impacts, they just didn't provide the level of protection needed. While the concept was a bold move towards making collisions less severe, it couldn't keep up with the demands of the evolving automotive world. By the late 1970s, water balloon bumpers were washed away by better solutions like crumple zones and energy-absorbing materials that were both practical and reliable. Coming in at number 7, wrist twist steering control. Now here's one that'll make you raise an eyebrow. This futuristic-sounding gadget was an experimental alternative to the traditional steering wheel. Instead of turning a wheel, drivers would twist their wrists to steer. The idea was to make driving feel more dynamic and precise, especially during sharp movements. But did it actually deliver on its promise, or did it turn out to be a complete flop? It was a bit of a nightmare. For most drivers, it was awkward and downright confusing. There was almost no feedback, so it was hard to tell how much you'd actually turned. This led to a whole host of safety concerns as drivers struggled to control their cars effectively. Like water balloon bumpers, the wrist twist system couldn't keep up with the times. As car makers focused on making driving more natural and safe, they stuck with traditional steering wheels, which gave drivers the responsiveness and control they needed. Taking the stage at number 6, unsafe fuel tanks. Back in the day, cars like the Ford Pinto had a design flaw that turned them into literal ticking time bombs during rear-end collisions. Why? The fuel tanks were positioned right behind the rear axle. This placement left them dangerously exposed in crashes, making them vulnerable to punctures. The worst-case scenario? Fuel leaks that led to fires or even explosions. The issue came to light after several high-profile incidents that caused public outrage. People started demanding better safety standards, and regulators couldn't ignore the problem any longer. By the late 1970s and into the 1980s, stricter rules were put in place. Car manufacturers stepped up by relocating fuel tanks to safer spots, like above the rear axle, and reinforcing them with protective barriers. These changes might seem small, but they were game changers. making cars significantly safer and reducing the risk of fuel-related disasters during crashes. Coming in at number 5, oddly placed gear levers. Now let's talk about something less explosive but still problematic: gear levers in strange places. In some older cars, you'd find gear levers on the steering column or even mounted on the dashboard instead of the center console where we're used to seeing them today. Sure, these designs might have looked cool or saved some space, but they weren't exactly user-friendly. Drivers who were accustomed to standard gear placements often found themselves fumbling around. Shifting gears in these unconventional setups could be distracting, and in some cases even dangerous. Imagine accidentally hitting the wrong gear while focusing on the road. As the years rolled on, ergonomics became important in the auto industry. Manufacturers realized that instinctive design wasn't just about comfort, it was a safety issue too. By the late 20th century, gear levers found a standardized home in the central console, right where drivers could easily access them without taking their eyes off the road. Next up at number 4, ashtrays and cigarette lighters. These features reflected a driving culture where smoking was practically second nature. You'd see drivers lining up at red lights or flicking ashes into those tiny little trays without a second thought. But as cool as that might have seemed back then, these additions had a dark side. For one, they were a recipe for distraction. Lighting a cigarette while driving meant taking your eyes off the road for a few precious seconds, and that's all it takes for things to go wrong. Plus, there was the fire risk. Ashes or lit cigarettes could ignite upholstery or other flammable materials, leading to potentially disastrous accidents. As public health campaigns started highlighting the dangers of smoking, and especially smoking while driving, car manufacturers took notice. Slowly but surely, ashtrays and cigarette lighters disappeared, making way for features that actually enhance safety and usability. Today, instead of cigarette lighters, you'll find USB ports to charge your phone. A practical upgrade, wouldn't you agree? Coming in at the top 3, thin A-pillars. This is something you probably didn't think much about, but plays a huge role in your safety: the A-pillars. These are the vertical supports on either side of your windshield, and in older cars, they were designed to be quite thin. Now, what was the reason behind this? Simple: better visibility. Thinner pillars made it easier for drivers to see pedestrians, cyclists, and other vehicles. But those skinny A-pillars weren't the best at holding up in a crash. In a rollover or a head-on collision, they could crumple, failing to support the roof and leaving passengers vulnerable. Modern cars have taken a different approach. Today's A-pillars are thicker and sturdier, providing the structural integrity needed to protect occupants during an accident. Thanks to advancements in materials and engineering, they're able to combine strength with clever design, ensuring you still get a clear view of the road. At number 2, powered antennas. These were tiny, retractable gadgets popping up automatically when you turned on the radio and disappearing just as effortlessly when you turned it back off. Back in the day, they felt high-tech, like your car was showing off a little. But as useful as they seemed, powered antennas had their fair share of issues. For one, they weren't exactly built to last. A trip through the car wash could bend or break them, and low clearance spaces like parking garages were another antenna nightmare. And if they got stuck in the up position, not only would your car look a bit odd, but that extended metal stick could also pose a safety risk to pedestrians or other vehicles. Thankfully, technology came to the rescue. Modern cars ditched powered antennas in favor of more durable, embedded systems. These sleek designs integrate antennas into the windshield or roof, eliminating moving parts altogether. It's one of those quiet upgrades that make your car more reliable and less likely to give you headaches. And finally, at number 1, raw mechanical noise. Back in the day, engines and transmissions were loud. Car interiors weren't equipped with the advanced sound insulation we take for granted today. Every bump, rattle, and rev echo through the cabin, making it hard to enjoy the ride. But here's the thing: these loud mechanical noises weren't just annoying, they could be dangerous. They hid important sounds from the outside world, like emergency sirens or honking horns, reducing a driver's awareness. Fast forward to modern times, and things couldn't be more different. Car manufacturers listened to drivers' demands for quieter, more comfortable cabins. They started using better insulation materials, noise-dampening technologies, and even fine-tuning engines to reduce their roar. The result? Today's cars are a haven of peace compared to their noisy ancestors. Not only does this improve driving comfort, but it also enhances safety, allowing drivers to stay alert and aware of their surroundings. Pretty amazing how far we've come, isn't it? Do you think any of these features should make a comeback with modern technology? Did we miss any dangerous old car features? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.